why is the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali such an important text in yoga is something that is very hard actually to explain without really getting into the history and the evolution of yoga in India. I would just say that in a very, very simplified way, India is very famous for being a very rich cultural background, but what is pretty lacking in India is a sense of order, which means if you have one school of yoga, you will probably find another 10 different other schools that has all kind of different variation of the same thing. And India at 2000 years ago was not much different. It means that there were many, many different sects and branches and mind streams that were kind of evolving at that time, and no one of these stream had you couldn't really get the kind of general idea of what yoga is, even at that time. Maybe they were lacking some German engineers to put everything in order. And Patanjali has done just that. He took the entire kind of collaborate experience of yoga as it expressed from the experience of different sages and yogis and spiritual practitioners, and he make one very defined structure of what yoga is, what are the stages of yoga are, how you can progress through the practice of yoga. How do you know if you got somewhere or you just stayed in the same place? What is more important than what? What is more subtle than what? And he created a very organized structure to basically put everything in place. And the most important contribution he gave was probably, first and foremost, explain what is the goal of yoga, which is of course the state of cosmic consciousness, the state in which your mind is rest with the infinite and you don't experience anymore anything from the manifestation of the senses. And at that state of very, very high concentration and pure expansion of the mind, only then, Patanjali claims, you can really understand what is the nature of reality, what is the nature of the mind. And this is the absolute most important thing to achieve in yoga. This is the highest and maybe only achievement, really become like a lasting achievement that you can obtain through yoga. This state or this thing is called samadhi or nirvikalpa samadhi. There are sub-states or preliminary stages in that achievement, and basically the whole thing here is that it's not something that happens spontaneously. It's not something that just happens out of the blue, but there is a very clear ladder that kind of leads to that achievement. And Patanjali specified and clarified what is this ladder composed of. And this ladder basically composed of 7 preliminary steps, in which the first one and the second one has to do with morality. Like every religion, Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, or every spiritual path, lay a foundation in how we behave in the world. And there are one thing that has to do with what to abstain, what not to do, and then the other stage is what to do. So abstaining from harming, abstaining from stealing, abstaining from lying, and so on, abstaining from abusing or exploiting this sexual and creative energy and such and such. So there are the obstinancy, what you don't want to do and what you have to do in order to kind of get higher on your spiritual journey. And what you have to do is about learning, it's about purifying yourself, purify your body. It's about a lot of different things that has to do with creating the right habits to purify your mind, creating a longing for spiritual achievement, so for salvation. Beyond that 2 stages, there is the stage which is called asana. Asana, the first stage is yama and niyama, which means what to do and what not to do. And the third stage, asana, is all about your position of the body, controlling the body, out of the idea that in order to get into the ability to control your mind, you have to first have some control on your body, because the body is sort of gross mind. There were not such a difference in body and mind in the Indian thought at the time, in which there was a separation. Philosophy, like Western philosophy, has a lot of problem with how the mind and the body are connected together. It's called the psychophysics question, how the mind and body are connected together. In India and in yoga, body is like gross mind, and mind is like body is like gross mind, and mind is like subtle body. So And you actually have a degree. They have layers of bodies. It's not only one body. It's like a shell of bodies that is one inside the other, like in Russian dolls, so to speak. Uh, Yoga is just the same. You have this thing with the body that you want to control it, and through controlling your body, you are more able to control your mind, which is the more advanced aim of yoga. So first and for all is controlling the body. Be able to be still in one position, be able to have the ability to feel comfortable with your body wherever you are. If your body is restless and you don't feel comfortable anywhere, it's very hard to obtain any higher level of concentration or internalization of your senses. So most or even all of those positions we call asanas in yoga, they come out of the ambition to have more stability, peacefulness, and kind of easiness with your body. So when you sit, you can sit for a long time without your body kind of bothering you and take you out of your internal state. After the story with the body, there is the story about the energy. Yoga believes that there is something called energy. It's a bit like the force in Star Wars, the ki in Japan martial art, the chi in Chinese martial art. It is basically some force that surrounded all things, and especially all living things. And the way it is kind of flow in the body is very important to our mental and physical welfare, well-being, which means we really want to have a subtle, refined, and even we say a beautiful kind of energy around us. This sort of energy is called prana in yoga, the life force energy, and it is also have to do a lot with what we call the alternative healing systems. Basically, yogis believe that every sickness we have has something to do with this energy field, which means if a yogi will see you, the yogis that can already see the aura, can see the energy field around your body and in your body, he can look and say that you're gonna have a throat ache in a few weeks or in a few days. You will simply see that there's like a hole in your energy body, some place where the energy is not balanced or lacking, and he could foretell that at that area some malady is going to occur because in the energy structure of the body something is missing. To the contrary, some martial artists who really work on this qigong, this energy building exercises, they can stay for hours and hours in the cold. They can do very extreme things and never get sick. If their leg is broken, they can heal it in a few days. If they want, they can break 10 blocks in one hit, and it's not about how much muscles they have. They don't have more muscles than a bodybuilder, but still they can do much more than what any bodybuilder can do with the body, simply because they have this control of this energy, this life force. So yoga, or the fourth stage, is controlling this life force, and this is what is called pranayama. The fifth stage is already an internal stage. It's called pratyahara, and it's about not anymore about the body or the energy. It's about the senses, how to contract all the senses inward, so you don't notice anymore whatever happening outside, and all that you experience is this peace of being within yourself. And this is what happens when we are really kind of focused about something. Many times when somebody is even watching something like TV and is very focused on something or learns something and you get into the very high level of concentration, he doesn't notice that he needs to go to the toilet. He doesn't notice that he sits in a very weird position. Some people sit on the edge of their chair when watching a very thrilling movie for like an hour, and they don't notice it. If they will be put like this on the edge of the chair in another situation, they will not last like this for more than 2 minutes or 1 minute. But because this high concentration and high focus that they have on something, their senses are internalized and they simply don't notice what's happening with the body in the external way. So this is another stage, a stage of internalization, which lead to the stage of concentration. Concentration is when the body the mind achieve a state of single-pointed concentration on one thing. The single-pointed concentration on one thing is a very, very powerful mind state that is very rare to experience in modern life. It can happen sometimes when somebody is really, really, really focused on something, even beyond the point he doesn't feel his body, but to the point all he sees in his mind is just that object, and in a very stable way for a long enough time. It can happen to people who do things that demands very high concentration, like race car drivers, or maybe doctors who do surgeries and things like that. So some people do have the ability to build very high level of concentration in normal life, but it is pretty rare, and basically you have to work together, especially if you want to get it consciously, which means it will not be something that just come out of the blue, like you get into a sword fight, into a knife fight, and your need to survive kind of put you into something that makes you very focused. It was used by some teachers like Gurdjieff to really get to this level of concentration. He was sending his pupils sometimes to pick fights in port towns in France, but this is obviously not the recommended way to achieve single point of concentration. So yogis do practice a lot about how to achieve the single point of concentration and get consciously and willingly into this state whenever they want, and not whenever very, very special and rare circumstances arise. And the seventh stage in yoga on this scale is meditation. Meditation in the yogic way is not about following your breath and basically being aware of whatever going on, letting your mind wander. It is actually a very, very high and rare spiritual state in which your consciousness expands in a controlled way. Your consciousness, that this expansion of consciousness can really be experienced as something that has to do with very special bliss that kind of coming and is very felt in your entire being. It can be some sort of heightened perception of reality, like you can notice things that you don't notice. Time flow differently. Your body feel very differently. Everything kind of change. It is sometimes can be described like having an LSD experience or some other very powerful hallucinogenic drug that actually creates some expansion of the mind. The problem is hallucinogenic drugs that they are not leading to controlled expansion of the mind. They just lead to expansion of the mind in a way which can be pretty wild and random. This means that in order to reach this controlled expansion in which the mind really perceive the reality in different way, takes a lot of discipline and time, and it is based on having very, very high level of concentration on an object that can lead your mind into something which is more pure. So this is the seventh stage. The eighth stage, as I started before, is the state of superconsciousness, in which consciousness become like the infinite. It expands and expands till it gets to be infinite. It can hold the whole world. It can go beyond the senses. It can go beyond seeing energy and consciousness as separate things. It can go beyond bliss. It can go beyond dualities, between separating between concepts, good and bad, black and white, in and out, time, beginning and end. It is a state which is beyond all the conceptions of the mind and all the perceptions of the mind, and that expansion is a transforming perception, which means once you experience that in a truly profound way, you will not be the same. Something very deep in you will be changed, and it is kind of symbolized like having your eyes open in the first time to see the world in a very different way and to see yourself in a very different way. The thing that really is transformed is how you organize reality, which means usually we perceive reality through me and I, through our ego, through a sense of self-identity which kind of organized and twisted actually the whole way in which our brain analyzed and synthesized the data from the world. And this program of self-preservation, self-organization, self-perception is transformed. And it is not as powerful as it used to be before that experience. And it allows new sense of freedom that was not existing before in our being. And ultimately it leads to the complete freedom, which means full spiritual enlightenment and everlasting peace that lasts, and it is always there, non-conditional on whatever going on in the outside. So this is a very great achievement, and this is what yoga aims for. It doesn't aim for having great body or having a lot of energy or having really good ability to learn or focus or concentrate or having great personality and happy nature. It's not going there. It is part of the path. It is benefits and gifts along the path, but it's not the goal of the path. The goal of the path is absolutely 100% complete transformation of who we are into what we can be and into our 100% potential, which is absolute freedom. And Patanjali made it very clear that this is the direction. Beside that, he does include in his text a lot about supernatural powers or siddhis or perfections. These supernatural powers are basically the side effect of having very high concentration on different type of objects. Like if you get into very high concentration on the sun, or get a very high concentration on an idea, each type of this concentration can get you into some sort of spiritual realization, spiritual power that you can obtain through it. And he basically goes through different powers and explain their benefits and what they give you. And today it can, like in modern world, it can look very kind of mystic and unrealistic, that you can get into powers like becoming really big or really small, or do stuff like controlling your fire that you'll never be cold and things like that. But great yogis does achieve all kind of things like that, and it's very important that the yogis usually look at these siddhis or great power as not in a way of something you really want to achieve, but just as a side path, or as a something gift along the path that you can kind of get while you focus on the right thing. Because this can be a big diversion and even a trap if you kind of fall into being superhuman, having superhuman power, lifespan, or something like that, and you can still be very much a slave of ego and not enlightened at all, and ultimately not happy, or you can create very big damage if you have all kind of powers that you don't use for good, because the law of karma is above spiritual powers and siddhis. It is something which is a very universal and ultimate sort of power from the standpoint of yoga, and having great power holds great responsibility. And unless you purify yourself and you are already kind of empty of ego, and all your intention is helping all beings, these powers can in most cases just harm you. So the yogis are not very, they don't encourage you to focus on obtaining all these powers, while they do encourage you of focusing on the great goal of enlightenment. Even though if it can look very far, just achieving and aiming to this, just aiming and aspiring to get to that goal has great benefits. So this is more or less the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali in a nutshell. As I said before, the great contribution of Patanjali is making an order in the chaos of different yoga ideas and methods, bringing everything into writing, and he became an authority for yoga, which means all the different texts that appear later on in yoga, they kind of have some dialogue with the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali. They might change some versions, they might give different ideas for the kind of yama and niyama, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, how you should behave in the world. But the influence of the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali is very clear in other texts, and it is kind of the foundation stone of yoga. So I hope this clarifies something, and that now we can all go to our yoga practice with more clarity. Thank you, and bye.